brothers and sisters, we've all turned up the radio to hear Brother Jimmy Lakey, from coast to coast and shore to shore. Now raise your voice, oh, let us all Jimmy Lakey, get out of bed, Jimmy Lakey, raise your voice, Jimmy Lakey, hey, can't live without it with Jimmy Lakey, Jimmy Lakey.
Well, top of the morning to you, everybody. How's everybody doing on a Monday morning? The day the Lord has made. Hallelujah. Amen. Glory. Yes. April the 7th. My show sheet says April the 6th, and I just did that a moment ago. Too many tabs open in my life, I'm telling you. April the 7th is the day the Lord has made, and glad to have you here on the program. Back here in the studio in the Rocky Mountain region of Colorado, and wherever you're listening to across America throughout the day. A lot of you watching us live, but really probably more people watch it after the fact because you're busy and have jobs and you can't watch it throughout the afternoon. So whenever you're watching, wherever you're watching, good morning, hello, and hi-ho, neighbors. I hope you're doing well today. I really, really, really do. All right, nice to have you here on the show. Let's see, nothing in the news, not much going on out there, so let's just wrap it up and head on to the donut shop or to the break room, wherever you're going, because there's not much going on. Anybody watch these protests over the weekend? I have a question for you. By the way, Lakey Unleashed is the name of the show, the daily update for Lakey Unleashed. And this is me being, after years behind a glorious microphone, similar to this one right here. They finally decided in local radio they don't care about local news. And, they don't care about local programming. As a matter of fact, they're still running promos that my show's coming up tomorrow morning. It's funny. That's the kind of care and concern they have for the old station that I used to be on. But I have been cut from the confines of corporate radio after 20 years in the Denver region, the Denver area, from Fort Collins to Denver to Colorado Springs. I did talk radio, and I've been cut from there, and now I'm unleashed from the confines of corporate radio, and I get to say whatever the heck I want to say, and you get to say whatever the heck you want to say. Yes, you can comment during the show. As a matter of fact, one of the most valued portions of the show that we're thrilled of is you can comment on Facebook. You comment on the Rumbles. We're on several Facebook feeds, on Twitter feeds, Rumble feeds, YouTube feeds, Twitter feeds. You get the idea. We're everywhere out there. And when you see a place to comment, you'll see live comments. You put it in there in the comment section, and those pop up in our studio. And producer Chad and a fine committee of patriots are screening and reading and parsing every word and putting the very best words up there on the interwebs, from the interwebs up on the screen. So you can do that. Let's see what my title is today. Producer Chad is always giving me a new title, and I think I should see what the title is so I know. The Guru of Gab. Ladies and gentlemen, I am your Guru of Gab this morning, and I look good here. I got the natural lighting coming in from a studio window. I've got the studio lighting coming in here. You can tell we don't do makeup here. There's a sheen, not like a Charlie Sheen, but a glow on my face. Good morning, Jimmy and Chad, says Arloa. Arloa, I left the state of Texas. I know Arloa watches us in Texas every day. And Arloa, good morning to you. I'm glad to have you paying attention. I'll be back in Texas in a couple of weeks, and you'll know when I'm there. I'm not going to tell you in advance. You'll know when I'm there because you will feel a shift in the atmosphere, and it will be my glorious self walking into the Texas area. So that's going back there. This week I'm traveling to St. Louis, Missouri. If the weather is good, I have promised myself, my son goes to college in Missouri, and I have promised myself, and one time I just didn't feel like it, but Rush Limbaugh, the great, is buried in the St. Louis area. Matter of fact, I think it's St. Louis proper. And at a famous and historic cemetery there. And if I have the opportunity, and the weather is good, I don't want pouring down rain, but I will venture, and we're going to finally make the trek to, going to be there several days, and I'm going to make the trek to see and pay homage to Rush Limbaugh and his final resting spot here on the planet. And if I do, I'll video that. I'll take a video and some photography of that. But I'll be in St. Louis later on this week. Matter of fact, I think it's the Friday show. I think I leave Thursday. It's a Friday show. Will be done from St. Louis and Missouri, and it's going to be fun. So Scott says it's going to be awesome weather week on the Front Range. I hear the weather's going to be good. I was in Dallas all weekend, and that was crappy weather. It was warmer to come back to Colorado than it was to be in Texas. Cody says, morning to the guru of Gab and brother Chad. Ooh, that rhymes, doesn't it? The guru of Gab and brother Chad. I feel like we should there should be a rap song. During my days of a hip hop artist, when I was, when I was hedge fund and my son was trust fund, that was our names when we traveled. We traveled out with D-Rake. Drake is what I call him. Yeah, good morning. Missouri is drying out in the sunshine today. Rush was one of the greats. I'm going to go see Rush's final resting place this week. And my son's been to college. This is the second year of college. And usually I'm out there for a college football game in the Missouri region. And I just never have taken the time to go. So this is I'm staying extra, and I'm going to go pay homage to the greatness of Rush Limbaugh. I thought about, and I've seen photos of the graveside of Rush, and I've thought about some flowers, and then I thought about just an American flag. I don't know sure what I'll take, but I'll take something. And God bless Rush. None of us in radio for years, I always said, would ever be able to do what we do. I would not have made a living doing talk radio for 20 plus years in the Colorado area if it were not for the homage of Rush Limbaugh. So all of us, even talking today, a hell of a lot. As a matter of fact, probably owe everything to our Lord and Savior Jesus Christ and to Rush Limbaugh. So if there was ever a fourth part of the Holy Trinity, it could have been a Rush, and I'm going to go see it. I'm excited. Has anybody been? I do see occasionally Catherine, his widow, will post something, and she'll go to the graveside, snap a photo, or meet someone there, and that'd be beautiful if I got to meet Catherine there. But again, I'm sure she doesn't hang out there. But anyway, that's coming up. I'll let you know. I'll keep you posted, and that's going to be a fun trip there. My son has a spring football game because he plays college football, and so he's going to play spring football. He's coming off of a 1.5-year knee injury, and so Dad's going to be in the stands going, "Oh, don't hit him!" But that's just the nature of football. 1.5 years he's been out with a knee injury, big time surgery, all sorts of stuff. Arloa says Rush was the reason we discovered you, Jimmy. That was one of my greatest opportunities and greatest benefits of when I got to work for at the time it was Clear Channel, and then they hired me. They kept me on, which was surprising, for over 10 years, and they became iHeartMedia. Well, I was the opening act for Rush. I was the morning show in Colorado for the station that carried Rush that market. So that was fun. That was always fun to say. I'm the opening act, because people will say, "What do you do for a living?" I said, "Talk radio." They said, "What do you talk about?" I said, "Well, I'm the opening act for Rush Limbaugh." They go, "Oh," and you never knew whether they were excited or whatever, but that was always the response. All right. Anybody see this over the weekend? I digressed and went down a rabbit trail, but all of you are participating with your comments about the greatest of all time, Rush Limbaugh, the guru of Gab here. I was amazed over the weekend. I was busy, but I saw all these protests broke out. There was one in Denver down the road from me. There was one in, I think, Seattle. All these liberal enclaves, all these hellhole cesspools of cities that you wouldn't want to go to because you're not safe on the street and you're going to have to step over poop if you go there. They all held protest of all these pot-smoking, dope-smoking liberals out there, women with unshaven armpits and crazed blue hair, men that are really just boys that live in their mama's basement, and a bunch of people that, they don't know what... I saw Charlie Hurt was on the road doing interviews with him and say, "What are you protesting? We hate everything. What do you hate? Donald Trump." It was just derangement syndrome. No one had a real clear purpose of what the protests were about. And but what's funny, this is what's funny. 7, 6, 8 different cities that they were in, they all broke out at the same time, and they pretty much ended at the same time. You think this is grassroots or AstroTurf? Do you think this is the grassroots of America, or is this just some AstroTurf crap that's happening out there? And I have to say, I probably believe it's a little bit more AstroTurf. But it was funny. The people that Charlie heard from Fox News, which is funny to see him out as a reporter, it was funny that nobody seemed to actually know what they were protesting. No one was worked up about, we're against the tariffs. I think they called it the hands off my stuff. Well, let me read a news story about him. Trump faces coast-to-coast protest And Alexander Overcan breaks an all-time record in the weekend rundown. This is NBC. Coast-to-coast opposition to upheaval in President Trump's second term took shape Saturday as more than 1,200 events organized by Democrat activists broke out. Protesters across the United States took to the streets in a series of hands-off demonstrations decrying Trump's border enforcement and deportation policies. By the way, Democrat activists keep going. It is fantastic that you are protesting his border policies and deportation policies, because even among Democrats that are sane, that actually do shave their pits and don't act like hell's possessed by Beelzebub himself, those Democrats, even they like the border policy. It is overall, it is a well into the 70-80% majority of saying great job on cleaning up the messes. And also, they also say they're under the mass firings that happened under the Department of Government Efficiency. Did you know the Department of Government Efficiency has fired fewer federal employees than Barry Hussein Obama did? And did you know that the Department of Government Efficiency has fired fewer people, government workers right now, than Willie Jeff Clinton said he fired? And so all of you disingenuous, blue-haired, hairy armpit women out there squawking around there that you need to have an abortion tomorrow, but you're not even pregnant. That's how crazed you are. Do you not realize that? I hate to disturb your protest with the facts, but they have aborted more children in 1 year than what they have actually fired from the federal government in the few months of Donald Trump's presidency. And Donald Trump has fired fewer people than Barry Hussein Obama and Willie Jeff Clinton. So it's funny, but they're out there testing it, and they're having these demonstrations, and they're trying to make you think they're protesting on your behalf. It always seems like Democrats are never protesting on anybody's behalf except their own special interest and the people that lead their cult that pay them to go out there. Or if they don't get paid, they're really in the cult and they're out there just salivating and unhinged eyes and probably need an exorcism. They said they were also protesting the mass firings of Doge. Organizers said Trump and his billionaire advisor, Elon Musk, have created unnecessary crisis and believe that this country belongs to them exclusively. Actually, the majority of Americans say they're doing what they elected Trump to do. The majority of Americans, popular and electorally, actually voted for Trump to clean up the government, actually voted for Trump to close the border. And these blue-haired, crazed, wild people are out there saying, this country belongs to us. Listen. The moment this country belongs to the blue-haired wild people and women who drive Subarus and have unshaven armpits, that's the moment that we can pretty much kiss our keisters goodbye and say adios, because the country's going to fall apart. But these people, again, are in a cult, blindly out there protesting. One protester said, the organizers of the protest said they're taking everything they can get their hands on, our health care, our data, our jobs, our services, and daring the world to stop them. Let's break that down, the ignorance of that. There's people that will probably believe that. They're taking your health care. Has anybody's health care been affected by Doge? I don't know what health care has been affected by Doge, but it's a talking point. Our data, has anybody's data been compromised? I mean, Elon Musk used to own PayPal. If he wanted your data, he already had your data. Taking our jobs, most Americans... maybe some government jobs they trimmed down. Again, Trump has trimmed fewer jobs than Barry Obama and Willie Jeff Clinton. And our services. Has anybody noticed a cut of government services? That's an honest question. Has anybody noticed, because of Doge, a cut in government services? Now, if you're running the circumcision factory in Mozambique, probably not getting as many foreskins right now because they've disfunded through USAID the circumcision factory in Mozambique. But other than that, has the average American, these people are squawking about on the streets, have anybody noticed a cut in your government services? If you have, comment. I would love to hear where you have lost your government services. I think it would be fantastic. Jim says, good morning, Jimmy. What happened to your Fisher-Price microphone? What do you think? This is expensive? I know it says, sure, we taped that on there. I think I don't know. Producer Chad put this mic in. Producer Chad Rush Limbaugh had the golden EIB microphone, and I always said I had a Fisher-Price microphone. Well, compared to the golden microphone, this is still a Fisher-Price microphone. But yeah, what happened to it? I do have in the other studio, actually, down the hall where we filmed the Critical Mission podcast, that studio actually has the microphone that I called my Fisher-Price microphone, and I used it for over 10 years on the other station as my mic that was in my home studio. So I have that microphone. So that's it. If you watch the Critical Mission, you'll see me speaking in a microphone there, and that's actually the Fisher-Price microphone. So that's a great question, Jim. Thank you. Reference back to the radio show. That was a good reference. All right, we're going to go to historian and author Tevi Troy, talk a little bit about this Doge thing. These people are out protesting, and Elon Musk and the titans of industry have always had some great effect and impact in the White House, and Tevi Troy wrote a book about that. But before I do, I thought this was a kind of a beautiful summary of what's happening in Washington, D.C. right now. Ladies and gentlemen, we talk everything, even like things about nature, and we like to find conservation, and we believe in the wild kingdom, and we believe in saving the planet. And ladies and gentlemen, someone just recently did this little brief documentary on an animal that we have all been watching, and we'll just watch it. You'll understand the tie-in here. Ladies and gentlemen, please pay attention. Because it's an animal in the wild that has been observed and is being observed, and it's now being affected by Doge. So I said, if anybody by Doge has lost a government service, let us know what that is. Well, I want you to watch this. Turn up your screen, watch this, and this is Doge affecting wild animal observation. You'll understand. Watch it.
The sea hag. For decades, this cunning yet repulsive specimen has evaded justice, lurking within the corridors of power, amassing shitloads of cash while collecting the humble salary of a public servant. The sea hag's fortune is derived not from skill or providence, but from the insidious art of insider trading, a practice that, while illegal, often slips through the cracks of enforcement, buried beneath layers of political camouflage. Yet now a most unexpected predator has entered the fray. This autistic rocket surgeon has set his sights on the sea hag and her network of accomplices. As they scramble to hide their corruption, one thing has become increasingly clear. For the first time in her long and storied crime spree, the sea hag may finally be cornered.
There you have it, the sea hag. Anybody follow the sea hag? If you're a fan of the sea hag, watch it. She may be finally cornered out there, and that is a little tough. It's so true, though, right? Various amounts of fortune because of maybe insider trading. I don't know, but you'll figure it out. All right, ladies and gentlemen, glad to have you here. Linda says coffee is all over. We're going to play that again in the second half of the show because we have people that come and go. We're going to play that again, and you'll get to see it again. But yes, I did not want to warn you. I wanted to make it think it was serious. So when everybody else joins the show, because people come and go all day, don't tell them. Don't tell them this is a funny moment. I'm going to set it up to be very, very serious about the sea hag. So don't screw this up for us. Don't screw the joke up. That's funny. I saw that yesterday and on the airplane, and I said, we got to play it on the show, producer Chad, and there it is. We're looking out for the sea hag. There we go. All right, ladies and gentlemen, glad to have you here. Protest happened all across America yesterday. They all were tooting the same horn and reading the same script that Elon Musk was causing them problems. He was cutting government services. And again, and I mean this sincerely, Jim says coffee went up the nose on that one. So everybody's having a coffee problem on that. You're welcome. This show has ruined more computers and more phones and keyboards than probably most shows have. I was going to say something tacky, but I'm not going to say that. I'll say in the next half of the show. Stick around. I'll get to that one. I'll get to that joke that what does the Bible say? The good book says, bring every thought into captivity. Does anybody spend as much time as I do bringing thoughts into captivity? Going, oh, don't do that. No, that's a thought. Because all of my thoughts that I say want to escape from the mouth, and that's oftentimes not a good thing. It's a funny joke, though. I so want to say the joke I thought about, but I'm not going to say it. I'll do it in a second. NJ says sea hags are typically depicted as as unattractive, unpleasant, and sometimes even dangerous. They're often even associated with witchcraft. Meeting adjourned. I rest my case. All right, ladies and gentlemen, Tevi Troy jumps in here. We're running behind here. It's not unusual. Tevi Troy, author and historian, has written a book about the titans of industry and the presidency. We'll talk about that here in a moment. Welcome back, Tevi. How are you?
Hey, Jimmy. Thanks for having me. I always appreciate being on.
I appreciate you coming on the program. I'll plug the book here in just a moment, but everybody look up books by Tevi Troy, and this is one that kind of explains the historical perspective of Elon Musk in the White House and in Doge and all the things that the left is hyperventilating about. It's not the first time in history that has ever happened, and that's what we're going to talk about here. Give me your view. 100 days. Elon Musk has become, in some sense, we've replaced Trump derangement syndrome with Musk derangement syndrome. The left has dubbed him as public enemy number one. Is that usually what happened to the titans of industry that interacted with the presidents?
Yeah, it's a good question. And there's always got to be a bad guy. I mean, you look back in my book, The Power of Money, I talk about John D. Rockefeller, and he sure was public enemy number one in the Teddy Roosevelt administration. It was a little different. The Roosevelt administration was targeting Rockefeller, whereas the Trump administration has brought in Musk. But still, you have had these titans of industry who have often been chief villains in the eyes of the American public. So that in a sense, is nothing new.
It's fascinating that they're going after Elon because he's a billionaire, and then they're going after Trump because he's supposedly tanking Wall Street. But in tanking Wall Street with these tariffs, supposedly, it's affecting billionaires and billionaire companies. And so it's nothing. If you do something that years ago the Democrats used to want to do, which is enact tariffs and take these behemoth companies down a little notch or two, then they're mad about that. If you partner with one of the billionaires, they're mad about that. It's really kind of fascinating to watch it. They just can't seem to make anybody happy.
Yeah, well, there's a lot of interesting things going on. I'm myself not a huge fan of tariffs. So I guess I sympathize with some of the companies, but it's not just the companies, it's the individuals who are seeing the stock market shifts. But look, we'll see what happens. I mean, Trump has this theory of the case. Let's see if he can reshape the economy. It's not so easy to do. And there's a lot of headwinds against it. But I'm curious to see how it plays out.
Yeah, we not the topic of the day with the tariffs, but the more the interaction with the Trump first 100 days and Elon Musk. And again, Trump has all sorts of negotiating tools, and that's what he says they are. We'll see how they play out. I don't think you can judge a policy on the first day that it's enacted and find out whether it's the right thing or the wrong thing. Give me your thoughts on this first 100 days. You have these protesters that hit the street this weekend, and on a statement they said that they're going out to protest this weekend, a coordinated quote grassroots organization, but it's really astroturfing. They go out and protest because Donald Trump and Elon Musk have taken quote our healthcare, our data, our jobs, and our services, and they're daring the world to just stop us. This is a crisis. Give me your thoughts on that. Elon Musk has done a lot of things, but I didn't know he took anybody's health care, anyone's data, anyone's jobs, and I'm not sure what government services he's taken either.
Yeah, obviously it's overstated, and I agree with the AstroTurf stuff. I mean, there's a dynamic in presidential administrations. I've worked in them. The presidents come in, often Democrats, always Republicans, who say, we're going to cut, we're going to see what we can fix, we're going to make it more efficient. Bill Clinton had Al Gore doing the reinventing government stuff. But then when the cabinet secretaries are actually there in place, they are resistant to change. They don't want to change their bureaucracies because the bureaucracies are their sources of their power. You don't want to cut the people who are working for you. You don't want to limit the number of programs you have. You don't want to limit the amount of money you have to deploy. So it does take an outside force to change things, to shake things up. And that's, I think, the potential value of Doge, to have somebody who is not the cabinet secretary, who is not dependent on the bureaucracy as the source of his power, to make these determinations and say, hey, maybe we shouldn't be doing, transgender comic books in third world countries, or maybe we shouldn't be having so many different servers when you should have one server that's more efficient. And I think it's that kind of work that Doge can do from the outside perspective of a non-cabinet secretary.
Now, you wrote an entire book called The Power of Money and about the titans of industry and the presidency of the United States. And we'll plug the book again here in a second, tell people where to get it. But walk us back. You mentioned Rockefeller, and that was kind of Roosevelt made him the enemy. In the historical perspective, have presidents publicly as this partnered with the titans of industry and said, hey, the experience and expertise and brilliance you have in the private sector, bring it to the government? Has there ever been a script like this played out before?
Well, the thing about historical comparisons is there's never an exact matchup, but there are similarities. So I just wrote a piece for Fox Opinion that talks about other big name outsiders who came in to an administration, worked in non-traditional, meaning non-cabinet jobs or official White House jobs, to focus on the president's top priority. So, for example, there's a guy named Colonel House who worked with Woodrow Wilson, never had a job in the Wilson administration, was never paid by the government, but he ran foreign policy for Wilson. You had this guy, General Hugh Johnson, who came in the Roosevelt administration, and he tried to do to the private sector what Musk is trying to do to the public sector. So Johnson was head of the National Recovery Administration, which was just something that Roosevelt set up. Eventually, it was passed by Congress, but Johnson also intimidated companies to signing on to the restrictions that he was trying to impose on companies. So there are these examples of outside people coming into government and taking on a presidential priority. None of them have done it exactly like Musk, but there are echoes.
It's have any of them in your historic look back, have any of them been demonized in the same way that Musk was? Obviously, the media is a little bit differently. We have social media now where things can take a life of their own. But other than what you know about Roosevelt and Rockefeller, have any of them become public enemy number one, even though they were maybe trying to do something positive?
A lot of these people that I talk about have been criticized both inside the press and within the administration. I mean, you see Musk also has some people inside the administration have not been happy with his approach. There was that cabinet meeting where there was a lot of sniping, for example. So yes, sometimes these people come in and they may even take a reputational hit. There's a guy named Henry Luce, who is head of Time magazine. He was very close with Eisenhower. He helped the Eisenhower campaign. He brought staff to work for Eisenhower in the campaign and in Eisenhower's administration. And then Time magazine used to take reputational hits for being too in the tank for Eisenhower. So sometimes your company can suffer for doing the work you do with government.
We have this kind of a fake measure called the first 100 days, in which a president is judged by, and they say the first 100 days is kind of your honeymoon period. Give me your thoughts, perspective on the first 100 days. Obviously, I think great success at the border. Kind of the jury is still out on these tariffs out there. But overall, your thoughts with the first 100 days. The media and his opponents have tried to paint it as a lot of chaos. I kind of view it more of a lot of action, which the government and the bureaucracy not used to a lot of action and positive steps. But give me your thoughts. First 100 days judged in the paradigms of history.
Yeah, maybe both are right, Jimmy. There's definitely been a lot of action, and in some areas there's chaos. But I think you have to look at these first 100 days as among the most impactful 100 days of any presidency, up there with Franklin Roosevelt, who they coined the whole concept of the first 100 days because of Roosevelt's flurry of activity when he came in. Reagan was also quite active in his early days, and remember, he got shot towards the end of his first 100 days, and the administration was teetering a little bit, and then it actually recovered as Reagan recovered, and there was some public sympathy for him. He passed his budget deals and then went on to have a pretty successful presidency. So there have been other impactful 100 days, but this one is going to be considered among them going forward.
Trump has, and I'm sure you've looked at a lot of presidents in your days of writing and his story, and Trump keeps invoking the name of McKinley, making sure McKinley's name is back on a mountain, making sure that we know that McKinley was very successful, supposedly, with tariffs. Is there anything in the compare and contrast mode of learning from the annals of history that we should know about McKinley? And Trump keeps bringing him up. Are there some parallels that we should pay attention to?
There's definitely parallels with McKinley, a number of them. In the tariffs is one of them, a very savvy politician who figured out the key to getting the White House back for his party. Also had a vice president who was very critical of big business. McKinley's vice president was Teddy Roosevelt, and obviously Trump's is Vance. So yeah, there's definitely some similarities there. And also McKinley was reelected. Trump was reelected, after an interregnum, but still also came back for that second term. So yeah, I could see the McKinley parallels in there, definitely.
Let me ask you this question. You've studied these titans of industry. The Power and the Money is the name of your book. Tevi Troy is my guest. You've studied these presidents and their relationship, good, bad, and ugly, with these titans of industry. Is there any, watching from the outside, is there any advice that if you could sit down with Donald Trump one-on-one and say, hey, here's the mistakes and here's where these relationships with these titans have gone bad, here's where they've gone good, if you want this to continue to be positive, here's any advice that Tevi Troy would give based on, again, the lessons in history that other presidents have had with the titans of industry?
Yeah, it's a really interesting question. And in my book, The Power of the Money, I talk about this power dynamic between the titans of industry, between the CEOs and the presidents. And I say that in any discrete interaction, at any one point in time when they are going up against each other, the president has more power. But over time, CEOs can outlast presidents, and they can serve in multiple administrations, and their tenure can go on much longer. And so they have, in some ways, more transformative power than, let's say, a one-term president would, and even could be comparable to a two-term president. So think about the long term in terms of what these CEOs are trying to accomplish and what they can do and how they could burnish your legacy even after you're gone.
When you wrote the book, The Power and the Money, you had no clue that Elon was going to be this involved. Has it inspired other books in your head here about these CEOs and titans of industry like Elon Musk?
Well, it's definitely inspired a lot of articles and follow-ups and good interviews like this one. I am thinking about what my next book is. All my books thus far have been presidents and blank is something that nobody's ever covered before. Since obviously I've covered presidents and CEOs, it's going to have to be a new blank, but stay tuned for what that might be.
It shall be interesting. Were you surprised that this is a titan of industry, Elon Musk? That the rumor is this past week he wants to call it quits. 100 days, I think, is how long he can. I think 100 days is how long he can participate as a special employee, and he wants to go back. Yeah, he wants to go back to private sector. Does that surprise you that this titan with all this power supposedly would want to walk away?
Well, no, for a couple of reasons. First of all, the sources of these titans of industry's power is their companies. And we can see that Musk's company has certainly taken a hit in this period. So he's got to preserve that source of power. The second thing is something like Doge. You don't want to do it for 4 years or 8 years. You want to come in, make your mark, say, here are the changes that have to be made. And he's not going to be working in Congress to pass any legislative changes that will change the trajectory of the industries. He wants to recommend them and say this is what they are and move on. And I think it's actually a smart move to keep it for a relatively short tenure, especially the degree to which he's been demonized in this period. I think you're better off saying, I've served my country, I've done my time, and now I'm going to move on.
I never wanted a Tesla, but I rode in one yesterday in an Uber, and that was a fascinating car. The guy was like, oh, look, I can take my hands off. It was changing lanes. It was doing all sorts of stuff. And I said, I don't care whether you like Doge or not. That is an interesting piece of technology, the Tesla. It's fascinating. It's just amazing.
Yeah, I mean, look at Dan Neal, the Wall Street Journal car reviewer, who is not a fan of Musk or Trump, and he said this car is the best value you can get right now, and he recommended it as the car to buy if you have to buy one right now.
I'm contemplating it. If I buy a car, I'm not going to buy a car anytime soon, but when I do, I'm going to look at the Tesla. It's amazing. I never thought of electric. It's not about save the environment of the penguins or anything. It was just a crazy car. I rode in my Uber yesterday. It was a Tesla, and it was crazy good. All right, Tevi Troy, if someone wants to get a copy of the book, The Power and the Money, where do they go, sir?
Oh my gosh, so many places. Wherever fine books are sold, you can go on the internet to Amazon or Barnes & Noble. You can go to your local bookstore. It's on Kindle. There's audiobook version. It is a great read. It's a great listen. I recommend everybody to get The Power and the Money.
And I'm guessing people got the hint of what the book's about, but give the quick thumbnail elevator speech of what the book is about if somebody couldn't connect the dots while you and I have been talking.
Absolutely, and thank you. It is the 150-year history of the interaction between presidents and big-name CEOs, people like, as I mentioned, Rockefeller, but also Henry Ford and Henry Luce and Elon Musk and Mark Zuckerberg and all these people had to deal with presidents. Sometimes they were asleep at the switch. They didn't recognize how important Washington was to their business and business models, but all of them at some point recognized that I need to spend some time and some attention on Washington if I'm going to be successful in my business endeavors. And how do the presidents treat them? Sometimes better, sometimes worse. And every one of these CEOs, big name CEOs, dealt with multiple presidents over the course of their careers. And that's what makes it interesting. You can compare how they dealt with different presidents.
All right, last quick question. I know you got to run, but you mentioned Zuckerberg. We think of Bezos. These are also titans of industry that have cozied up in a sense, or at least become familiar with the Trump presidency. Elon Musk is taking all the oxygen out of the room. Anything observation by these other titans and Donald Trump?
Yeah, I think the first term they said, well, he's a fluke. He's not going to be around that long. And my workforce, my liberal West Coast workforce hates him. So I'm going to be in the opposition. And I think the second time around, they recognize, A, the damage a president can do to your company if you have a bad relationship, but B, that Biden was no friend to these companies and they really suffered in the Biden administration. And I think they're taking a different approach to dealing with the Trump administration the second time around.
Tevye Troy, I appreciate you. I know I ran a little long there. I appreciate you hopping on the program. Tevye Troy, The Power and the Money. Go pick up a copy of it. Ladies and gentlemen, it's Lakey. I've been unleashed from the confines of corporate radio. And here we are streamcasting together one-on-one. Everybody stay right here and don't you go anywhere. We got more updates on the latest of the Sea Hags. We're watching them very closely here on the show, and I'll be back in just a second. Lakey, Unleashed, stick around. There is more to come. We're not stopping. We're about halfway done. Everybody stick around. More to come.
1 Hour Heating and Air Conditioning is on call 24/7, even on weekends and holidays. We pride ourselves in our on-time guarantees. In addition to installation and repairs, we offer maintenance services. So no matter when you need us, you can always count on 1 Hour Heating and Air Conditioning to keep your system running. Check out our family of brands for all of your service needs, including electrical and plumbing.
Our heating and air conditioning.
I'm an ex-drug dealer, and I'll be your sub today. Two milligrams of fentanyl can be lethal. A lethal dose is in here. Who gets it, I won't know.
It's cheap, it's potent, and it's profitable.
The sad reality is, fentanyl is being mixed into everything now.
More kitchen now.
All right, welcome back. Got to hit the right buttons in here in the studio. Good to have all of you here on the program. Jimmy is my name. It's Lakey Unleashed. If you'd like to be in a little feature like that right there, you just saw it. Just send us an email, info@jimmylakey.com. We'll send you the information on how you can be a great sponsor of the show, info@jimmylakey.com. And wherever you're listening, know you're not alone. And we're on several... Scott says he just purchased the audible version of the Tevye Troy book, The Titans of Industry. Great guy. And I always keep Tevye longer than he wants to. The next time he'll come on, he'll say, I got to be out by this time. So I always run late with him. But he's a very busy guy. And I probably inadvertently, it's not on purpose, I end up just yapping because I've been unleashed from the confines of a corporate radio clock. And so I just do the interviews. By the way, speaking of interviews that I do, don't forget we have a Patreon page, and those are long form interviews, 30, 45 minutes to an hour. And there's 20 something up there. There's one that launches out today about the JFK assassination. So if you're a subscriber or watch your inbox, you'll get an email alert that the interview that I did last week on the JFK assassination and Lee Harvey Oswald did not kill John F. Kennedy is the premise of the interview. That is coming up. That's going to drop into your inbox today sometime. Patreon.com/Jimmy Lakey. It's a $9.95 subscription. And I just like to remind you that that's a way you can support the program. We put this out there for free. We put some paid advertising in the middle of it. But overall, we're trying our best to keep this free. We're talking about also taking this daily update and then launching it not just as a stream cast where you go to the platforms, but as soon as it's done, launching it as a daily podcast. So we're lots of talk about what's next for that. The TikTok, we're still working on the TikTok launch. So we want to continue to grow. You can help us support it by not just using the advertisers that we have that you see commercials for and you hear me talk about, but also to go to patreon.com/Jimmy Lakey, patreon.com/Jimmy Lakey. We would love to have you. Let me give you a sample of what's on Patreon. This is the interview that dropped last week, and this is an interview about the wonderful and talented, very marvelous and handsome Elon Musk. And it's a book about his leadership. You think of him as kind of the mad scientist, but if you look at what he has grown, the leadership in his businesses, it's quite amazing. I mean, I forgot this, that Elon has built tunnels through parts of Las Vegas, and there's driverless taxis that take you through these tunnels as a shortcut, bypassing the monorail. I have not used those, but I was reminded that that's his technology of tunneling and boring under the streets of Las Vegas Boulevard that has an underground taxi system that next time I'm in Vegas, I need to go procure and find a way to get on it. I think you can catch it at the new Resorts World, and it goes to various places, but that's Elon, the spaceship. Did you hear this over the weekend? He successfully launched astronauts. In the very first time astronauts have ever done they usually kind of do a horizontal orbit around the Earth. This is the first time astronauts have ever done a polar orbit. They went North Pole to South Pole, orbited the Earth, North Pole to South Pole. The entire orbit would take about 46 minutes. He successfully put astronauts into that orbit over the weekend through his technology. NASA, all of the king's horses and all the king's men in government couldn't do it, but Elon Musk's company, SpaceX, figured out how to do it, and they did that orbit over the weekend. The guy is fascinating. I was talking to my Uber driver yesterday. As I mentioned, I rode in an Uber, and if you've never ridden in an Uber, I've been in them before, but I wasn't paying attention because Elon Musk, now what they're doing, I think the critique of Elon Musk has made guys like me saying, maybe I should buy a Tesla. Maybe the next car that I buy, not planning to buy one anytime soon, but the next car I buy may be a Tesla. They've really highlighted, they're tearing these cars up, they're painting swastikas on them, doing all sorts of nasty things to these Tesla drivers, private property, damaging private property, because that's what liberals do. They don't give a damn about private property. And so they destroy it, tear it down, and they've never been held accountable. They're going to be held accountable in this administration. But I always was distracted by the video screen because I'd want to watch the video screen instead of watching the road. And I learned yesterday that is that's the point. This Tesla is picking up things, and the driver was telling me that the spectrum of vision and is even a higher spectrum than human vision. And so literally it'll put up you can see the cones on the road, and it is a real-time visualization of what that cone is. It's just fascinating technology. He was showing me all sorts of bells and whistles while he was driving. And at first I'm like, why are you talking to me so much about your car while you're driving? And then I realized because the car was pretty much driving itself. And he didn't have to pay that close of attention to anything. Now, he didn't have the full self-drive version, he said. He said that came out a little bit. He didn't do that one. I don't know why. But anyway, Elon Musk, I want to play just a sample. This is an interview I did. And the same way I have become fascinated with Teslas now that Elon Musk has been taking fire from people that usually, if they're against it, I should be for it. And that's the liberals out there. And they're cursing the Elon. And I'm like, well, who is this Elon? So he started doing some study, had a great interview with Dennis Neal from CNBC days and also Fox Business News. And this is a little bit of how he went from hero to the villain in the eyes of the American left. But this is an interview that is up on my Patreon page. You need to go subscribe. 7-day free trial, $9.95, patreon.com/Jimmy Lakey. Here's a preview from the Patreon page. And another interview drops today about JFK. Go ahead. He used to be Orange Man bad. Now it's Elon Man is bad, and they're coming after him. Let me back up. We're going to get into his leadership and his background, but it didn't start just because he endorsed President Trump. It was the Twitter thing, the X thing. Was that the thing that kicked off the hatred?
Yeah, you know what? You're one of the few people in the interviews I've done who brought that up, and I think you just nailed it. I think you had 3 strikes in a row right now.
So if you want to know the 3 strikes in a row, you're going to go watch the interviews. Yeah, that's called a tease right there. All right, I'll play one more tease, and then I'll get to some more news out there. This is another tease. You want to know what the 3 strikes are, you have to go watch the interview with Dennis Neal. It's at my Patreon page, patreon.com/Jimmy Lakey. But this is one about Elon Musk and how he masters the media, and his innovation with Doge is a really interesting perspective of just kind of the mind of Elon Musk. Dennis Neal and me on the Patreon page. Go.
Look, and suddenly he became fascinated, and it's not at all what I was hoping it would be, strategically speaking. It's just that, that stock is up 750% in something like 10 years. And so even after the big plummet recently, and so whatever he's doing, he's welcome to keep doing more of it. I own the stock, actually.
A lot of the inventors out there, the inventor scientist mind, I go back to this kind of rare breed that he is. They don't want the spotlight. They're kind of back behind. They're going to be at the work table inventing stuff, holding up silverware, and creating new things. Not only does he not seem to mind the spotlight, it seems to be unfazed. I mean, remember, supposedly the greeting of holding the hand in the air, he was called a Nazi. I don't think none of it seems to faze him. He doesn't seem to give a rat's ass about all these things that they try to say against him.
I think a lot of us in life, we make the mistake of going down into the tangle. Someone offends us at work. Our spouse, makes us angry at home. And now we, boom, plunge down into that conflict. And we feel all upset. We're offended. How dare you do this to me? When instead, if we floated over the top of it and just hovered and floated on and focused forward, we could avoid all kind of Sturm and Drang and Soros and bad feelings and negativity. And I think that Elon just is, lesson 3 says that the highest nail gets pounded down first. He straps on a helmet. He doesn't care. He doesn't let himself be hurt by that. Although he does, smack back occasionally when someone is rather rude to him. He can't stop himself. His tweets, Jimmy, went up to something like from a few hundred a month to 1,100 a month after he bought Twitter. The Wall Street Journal reported at one point, and he even had engineers kind of amplify his tweets so that they reached more people. So he does believe in freedom of speech, especially his own.
I'm looking at a television monitor, and they're doing a special report about Elon Musk and the Doge team, which brings me kind of a different question where I was going to go. It's almost like he also, I've not met the Doge dudes. Evidently they're 19, 20-year-old kids, but it's like he found a younger version of himself. It seems like that's also fascinating.
And he's even using some of his best coders and best programmers, et cetera, from his other companies and bringing them in there to help out. And, government is terrible at technology, these legacy systems. Did you hear that one story about a contract that was supposed to last 6 years and cost, some billions of dollars, has now gone on for 20 some years, and it's $30 billion over budget or something? I mean, he's calling them out. Now, this Doge and this reduction thing,
you get the idea. It's a great interview, about 40 minutes long, I think. Dennis Neal and I here, you might recognize him. He was on CNBC and also Fox Business News, and he's written a book about the mind of Elon Musk, and it gets a little political, but it's not really about politics. It's more about understanding who Elon Musk is, and that's what Tevi Troy and I were talking about. And that interview is at patreon.com/Jimmy Lakey, and you got nothing to lose. It's a 7-day free trial. It's just $9.95 a month, and a new interview is about to drop a couple of hours from now. It's going to be about the JFK assassination, and that Lee Harvey Oswald did not shoot JFK. So there you have that. All right, good to have you here on the program. It's Lakey Unleashed. A lot of you join us in the second half of the show. I understand people can't watch the entire thing, but those of you who do take time throughout the day and you're watching in the afternoon or evening, thank you for being a part of the Lakey Unleashed streamcast. Always remember, you can comment on all the platforms out there, and as you comment, we read those in producer Chad and a group of people that are qualified and intellectual enough to actually, they could have doged the government as well. They're monitoring all of your comments, and say something creative, and it probably pops up on the screen. Say something probably uncreative, it probably pops up on the screen. They're very sensitive, though, they're posting, but everything ends up on the screen. So it's good to have you out there commenting and giving your love and affections, or blasting the show, however you want to approach it. But we do appreciate it. All right, let me ask you this. Over the weekend, I was watching everything from the news about these tariffs and these protests, And these protests, these AstroTurf protests, it just so happened that everybody had the same signs, and they're all activist groups that get out there, people, the renter riots, if you will. Many of these people are admittedly getting paid by the hour to be there, and so they go out and they get a lot of media coverage. That there's hundreds of them that have shown up. Some showed up in down the street from me in Denver. Some showed up in all these liberal enclaves where it's probably not safe to be out in public anyway, but they all show up there and they all protest, and they hate Trump and they hate Elon. And there were some on-the-field reporters, including Charlie Hurt from Fox News, that said, why are you out protesting? I think he was at the New York City one, and they said, we hate everything. Well, what specifically? They didn't know anything. They did not know why they were there. But there was a series of demonstrations called Hands Off. And they were screaming about Trump's border enforcement. So they don't like the fact that Trende Aragua and MS-13 gang members are being kicked out of this country, and that America is being safe again. So your modern day liberals out there, the face of their party, the face of the opposition, if you will, are people who want the border to be wide open again and want these gang members roaming the streets. So that's probably not a good look. And that's why I think at these hands-off rallies, you're not seeing a lot of Democrat politicians of prominence out there at them. Now, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez and Bernie Sanders did the fight the oligarchy. And if you watch, even though they're not spearheading these rallies, a lot of the signs said, fight the oligarchy. So it was the message of Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez and Bernie Sanders out there. But they say they're crying Donald Trump's border security policy, his deportations of gang members and the dangerous go first, and also mass firings under the Department of Government Efficiency. But both of those items that are the top tier of what they say they're protesting are polling very well with the American people. That is the most baffling part of the whole thing, is that America likes the fact that we're making government more efficient. America does not seem to be that sympathetic to these government cuts, because one of the things that people are not finding is these cuts have not hurt me. In the statement by the organizers, they say Elon Musk is taking our health care. And I throw this out for honest conversation. If anybody can tell me how your health care has been affected by Elon Musk, I'd love to know. Remember, we had Obamacare. That was the most glorious thing we ever could have. Elon Musk has not touched your health care. If you can tell me he has, let me know. I don't know how he's hurt. The average person out there has not noticed a change in their health care. The data. Again, Elon Musk, who already had a security clearance, Elon Musk, who ran PayPal, so he had access to all sorts of data. He started the company. Elon Musk, who just is the most brilliant computer mind, perhaps of a generation, if ever. I don't think his data is something that he's that concerned about. With you and your 575 credit score, I'm not sure a billionaire is going to hack your identity. With you, some of you have a credit score, you probably couldn't even get a new credit card right now. And you're 24 living in your mama's basement. I mean, you couldn't get one. So I don't think Elon Musk is really that concerned about your data. And jobs are jobs. Elon Musk is going after our jobs. They were protesting that. And nobody can tell any jobs that Elon Musk has taken from the private sector. There's been some public sector people that weren't showing up to work. There's been some public sector people that lost their private sector people. I mean, that lost their public sector that lost their jobs. Some took early retirement, took the buyout, and our services. If anybody can name any government service that at this point has been affected because of Elon Musk, feel free, because you had these radical goofballs on the streets this weekend saying that this is a crisis and it's a time to act now. Well, the average American's looking at the government cuts going, that's probably a good thing. Donald Trump has not fired as many government employees as Barry Hussein Obama did. Donald Trump has not fired as many employees as Bill Clinton did. And yet this is a crisis and it's time to act now. This is a case in point illustration of orange man bad, orange man bad. And so feel free, let me know if you've had your health care or your services of the government affected by Elon Musk. Love to hear the story, but they don't give stories. They just give talking points. And the talking points are not necessarily lining up with the facts. Now, on these tariffs, I want to follow this tariffs thing. I agree. The jury is still out, but you have 50 or so companies that have now lined up and say, we'd like a meeting at the White House. We want to redo our trade deal. And as I said, Donald Trump thinks of everything as a negotiation. And I heard Eric Trump said he's watching his whole life. If you're the last one to the negotiating table, you're automatically going to lose. And so Donald Trump's the first one at the table. So he's in the position of strength. And now all these other countries are coming and saying, yeah, we'd like to redo our trade deal. Vietnam, who is run by commies, and yet with sanctions and tariffs that had already been placed on China, a lot of manufacturers had moved to Vietnam for cheap labor because the commies traditionally don't take care of the workers, right? And so Vietnam has said, hey, we may be commies, but we like all this business we got from China because everybody left China. Why did they leave China? Because of tariffs and sanctions. And so Vietnam's like, hey, we'll waive all tariffs. And they want a meeting at the table. The UK evidently wants to have a meeting at the table. We talked last week about American-made automobiles in Europe. And I mentioned that Steve laughing and says, well, those Fords over there, and there are, but they're few and far between. There's few and far between American cars because the tariffs that Europeans charge American car companies to sell their cars in Europe on average is about 5 times higher than what we make them pay in tariffs to come here. And they said, Donald Trump started a trade war. Well, maybe they started the trade war and Donald Trump's just going to finish it, because think of that. Who starts the trade war when for generations we can't really sell a lot of our cars over there? They're not affordable because their tariffs are 5 times higher than what we charge them to sell their cars here. So Donald Trump says we're going to equalize that. You want to be 5 times higher? Fine. We're going to go up higher as well and try to match your tariffs as close as we can. And I see the wisdom of that. A lot of folks that I've talked to see the wisdom of that. I know that there's a lot of people in the media telling you your hair's on fire and you should freak out and you should scream and you should be very, very worried about this. But unfortunately, for the media, most people are not affected by the ebbs and flows of Wall Street that greatly. I mean, we've all seen ebbs and flows. If you have a 401k, you've watched the account go up, you watch the account go down, but you can watch it go back up in 4, 5, 6 months. It's you don't sweat. And by the way, if you think your retirement is going to be destroyed, this is a piece of advice. Your retirement is going to be destroyed because of what's happening with the Doge or the tariffs or something like that, because your 401k, I would highly recommend you see a financial professional and spread your portfolios a little bit more balanced to where the ebbs and flows and the craziness of Wall Street or don't affect you and wipe you out. Really, if you're panicked about your retirement because of your effect on your 401k, you probably have all of your eggs in one basket and you don't have a balanced retirement account. Now, this is a free little conversation here. I'd recommend you call Lehman Lewis Financial Group and talk to them about your retirement and have maybe more of a safety net when it comes to your retirement. Again, people that are freaking out that, oh my God, my retirement. I've seen people online freaking out. And I'm like, well, if your retirement is based on just the ebbs and flows of the market over a couple of weeks and you think your world has ended, and then you probably need to rethink your retirement strategies and you need to talk to a real professional. LehmanLewis.com. Talk to Josh Lewis, Alicia Lewis. Talk to them. They'll help you out. Lehman Lewis, anywhere in the country. Lehman Lewis, if you're freaking out about your retirement, LehmanLewis.com, go do that. But again, most people are, other than 401ks, most people are not affected by the ebbs and flows of the market like that. And it's just it's funny watching all the news over the weekend. I watched everything with the perspective, and I stopped and I said, how does that affect me? They were, the Wall Street, the futures are down. This is down. I'm sitting there watching, going, how does that affect me? And I think if you watch the news, not just listening, oh, I'm supposed to be pissed off right now. I'm supposed to be angry I'm supposed to be because of these tariffs. If you watch all these news, how does it affect me? Even the stories of these protesters and this hands-off protest happened across America, I listed off their 5 grievances, and I say, name one of those grievances that's actually true. It sounds good on paper, and you're, oh my God, they're protesting. Well, how did it affect you? How did your health care change because of tariffs? How did your health care change in the last 90 days or so of President Trump being in office? How's your life? Not. The media is telling you, and these protesters are telling you how that's greatly affecting you, and it's really not. And what's interesting is you have entire industries like the American automobile industry that are cheering on these tariffs and say, you're saving our jobs. You have small manufacturing towns that are no longer saying, wow, you're saving our jobs. And yet the only stories the media will tell you is these blue-haired idiots out there protesting in Denver and all these cities, liberal cities across America, and they won't go to the heartland and interview the union car worker that's celebrating and standing with President Trump for the tariffs. Again, you can be as agnostic on the tariffs or pro-tariff or anti-tariff, but watch what the media is doing. They're only telling the side of the protesters and those that hate the tariffs, and they're not going out and talking to I mentioned this Friday of the show, 90% of shrimp that you ingest in food, seafood shrimp in this country, is not American shrimp. It's not shrimps from American boaters, shrimping companies, because it doesn't work out for them. And these tariffs of importing shrimp are going to help the American workers. And so while all these blue hairs are out there protesting and the media gives them all the light of day, watch the news from a perspective and go, how does that affect me? Oh, it doesn't. They said healthcare. It didn't affect me. They're lying. So watch the news all the time with that perspective. How does this affect me? Because therefore you can kind of get a modicum of truth. And then also ask yourself, why aren't they going out instead of just getting the blue-haired protesters that live in their mom's basement and can't figure out whether they're a boy or a girl, rather than just go watching them? Why don't you go out to the shrimpers and ask the shrimping importers or the American shrimping companies, how does this affect you? And they're not out protesting. They're not out squawking. They're not out with blue hair. They're out there going, yeah, this is good. This is good for the shrimping industry here. Go to the American auto workers and ask them what they think, rather than just the blue-haired person that probably has a degree in underwater basket weaving and their master's degree is learning how to say, do you want fries with that? Those are the people that they're covering on the streets that don't know what they're protesting, and the media is too damn lazy to go out and find someone else that wants to actually they're too damn lazy to sorry, I'm getting a weird. They're too damn lazy to go out and find the people that are actually not suffering. They're really just that really are for these things, because there are people that are for this. Read the NBC News story. And the NBC News story said protests developed across America. No, about 1,200 events organized by activist groups, and a lot of these were paid protesters. It was Rent a Riot. And again, you can be, I don't know where I stand on tariffs. I've got a lot of friends that love them. I got a lot of friends that hate them. I got a lot of friends say, let's get rid of the American income tax system and let's go back to a tariff system. All that's an economic discussion we can have. But ask yourself how they're covering this. Are they covering this in such a frenzied way because they're trying to make it seem as if Donald Trump is a man of chaos? Are they trying to make it anything Donald Trump has said they say is not right and is not successful? But they're protesting some very strange things. Border security they don't like. They say Donald Trump and Elon Musk are taking away their health care. Again, watch the news, and say, how does this affect me? Most Americans on a day-to-day basis are not affected by the market. Most Americans are not invested in the stock market. You know why? Because the rich have gotten richer in our country and the poor have gotten poorer. And a lot of Americans still live in paycheck to paycheck and wish to God that they could be in the market. That's the fact. But the media covers everything as if all of us have everything we have invested in the stock market. And there's people, you're like, yeah, I don't even have a 401k. A lot of people stop paying their 401ks into that when their companies stop matching funds. And the companies, when they stop matching funds, 401ks, my advice, probably not the best one. I'm not an advisor. If you want some advice on your retirement, LehmanLewis.com would be a great place to go, Lehman Lewis Financial Group. But I'm just telling you that they're telling you to be all frenzied up, and I think sometimes there's not a reason to be frenzied up. All right, one more quick thing on this tariff, and this is an interesting story more than, but Trump says sometimes you have to take your medicine. And this is true. Steve Laffey's talked about this. Now, Steve Laffey is not a big Donald Trump fan. As you know, he's never voted for Donald Trump. He comes on the show every Wednesday, and always love to have his perspective on here. But Steve Laffey's talked about it. If he ever became president, Steve Laffey did run for president. Steve Laffey would say, hey, we're going to yank the Band-Aid off, and this is going to suck for a year or two, but we're going to get our economy back up where it's not going to have a Greece type collapse because of our because of our monetary policy. President Trump said on Sunday his tariffs are making America much stronger, and he is not intentionally engineering a stock market sell-off. He said, I don't want anything to go down, but sometimes you have to take medicine to fix something. We have been treated very badly by other countries because we had stupid leadership that allowed this to happen. Asian markets were in a rough start on Monday as Wall Street futures plunged and markets wagered, etc. Trump showed no signs of backing away. He said, what's going to happen to the markets, I can't tell you, but our country is much stronger. As for China, Trump is aiming to shrink the trade deficit with the communist giant. He says, unless we solve that problem, I'm not going to make a deal. So isn't it amazing? We've heard we have a trade deficit, and you finally have a president that has an active plan to deal with the trade deficit, which maybe you like the plan, maybe you don't like the plan, but did Joe Biden or Barry Hussein Obama or George W. Bush ever have a plan to deal with the trade deficit? Or is it just something that they campaigned about and bellyached and kvetched about, but they had no plan? See, this is what's happening. Donald Trump's right. In some sense, we're taking some medicine right now, and it may be a little stingy on the little Paisley 401k, but these are campaign issues that people have campaigned about for years and decades, and they've run elections over them, and they've run elections week after week and year after year about these topics, and they never solve the problems, and Donald Trump is actually trying to solve the problems. Again, probably Steve Laffey was the only guy that ever ran for president that had a plan to deal with the trade deficit with China and how to deal with the commie Chinese. And Donald Trump has his plan. Are they the same plan? Probably not. But guess what? At least there's a plan. And I guarantee you that you can gripe all you want. Well, we're going to trade the trade deficit, but I don't like how Donald Trump is doing it. Well, there's no politician that was ever trying to reduce the trade deficit. You understand the point here? The point is, everybody settle down, and just because they tell you to get worked up into a tizzy, don't get your underpanties in a bunch. Jay North. You know the name Jay North? He was the little kid in the original Dennis the Menace television show. Jay North has passed away at the age of 73 years of age. Rest in peace, Jay. He lived in Florida. Our producer Chad and I were talking at a pre-show meeting that sometimes these famous actors, they happen in threes. That's always the rumor. And so last week you had Val Kilmer. Now you have Jay North. And knock on wood, if you're a famous celebrity, you might want to not open the door if the Grim Reaper's knocking. So be careful. Anyway, Jay North, the original Dennis the Menace, had passed away. You know, Dennis the Menace is one of those shows that did not necessarily, I guess you could probably watch it somewhere like TV Land, for instance. They have Leave It to Beaver reruns sometimes. And I'm a big Leave It to Beaver fan. Always was. I'm a collector of Leave It to Beaver items. I know that's weird, but I'm a collector. But Dennis the Menace is one that did not replay a lot of syndication. It's always interesting how some of these shows play in syndication, some don't. But was it Mr. Wilson who lived next door, the cranky old neighbor? Mr. Wilson, I think so. Mr. Wilson. But Dennis the Menace, Jay North has passed away. Speaking of celebrity news, I'll give you a little bit. Anybody watch the Duck Dynasty? It was really big about 8-10 years ago. Everybody watched Duck Dynasty, the Robertson family. And it's Phil Robertson, who's the patriarch of the family. I guess around Christmas, it was announced that he had early stage Alzheimer's. And his family now is giving an update on their podcast that they have. And evidently, he is not doing well. On the April 2nd episode of Unashamed with the Robertson Family, sons Jace and Al Robertson and their cousin Zach Dasher revealed that Phil is not doing well. They said the number one question is, I get everywhere I go, how's your dad doing? And to be blunt, Jace said, not very well. He's now receiving professional care. Jace also shared that, they went to the hospital and just had a very emotional visit there. And they said, we appreciate your prayers for the Robertson family, as Phil Robertson is now in fast-moving but early stages of Alzheimer. And his wife, Mrs. K, she's also been in the hospital because of an infection she had from an accident. So the Robertson family, if you're a Duck Dynasty group, would probably appreciate your prayers, as Phil has dementia. And what an awful, nasty disease. Oh, so he has Alzheimer's, not dementia, but the same family. And what an awful, nasty, ugly disease that is. All right, today is National Beer Day. Not a beer guy. You remember your first beer? I remember as a kid, went to a Mexican restaurant. I was probably second, third grade, and I wanted a beer, and my dad said you can't have a beer. And my dad, he wasn't a beer drinker either. So he ordered a beer and let little Jimmy sip on the beer. And I thought it was the most awful thing. I thought it was the coolest thing to watch on TV, and everybody had a beer, and I wanted a beer, and my dad got a beer, and he handed me a little sip of the beer, and it was nastiest stuff ever, and I never wanted a beer. So because of that, I mean, he wanted to have some beer, little Jimmy, second grader. And I'm having the beer, and I didn't want the beer at the restaurant. And that being said, I never was a beer guy. I didn't drink much beer. Can we confess? I think we're all past the statute of limitations, right? When you were drinking, if you drank illegally in high school, what was your drink of choice? Mine was not beer. I had a lot of beer parties, and I didn't drink a lot. Yeah, Scott says was it a Coors Light? I don't know. I was in second grade. My dad just ordered a beer, probably a Coors, because I think my dad, if he did have a beer, was a Coors man. I think my dad used to bootleg beer. Okay, he lived in a part of East Texas, and they couldn't get Coors somewhere. I think that he drove across state lines to Louisiana. He used to bootleg it. He didn't drink it, but he bootlegged it. I don't think he drank it. He might have drank it, and maybe he didn't tell us. My dad did used to actually work for. He was going to college, working his way through school, and worked for the Dr. Pepper company in Dallas. And my mom was a teetotaler. My mother was a teetotaler, and at that time, she later in life she was healed of that teetotaling, and so but she found out that my dad would get free cases of Dr. Pepper to bring home, and my dad would hide beer in the Dr. Pepper cases and put them in the garage, and that way he could have a cold beer on occasion. And my mother was not very happy with that, and that almost ended the marriage. But she got over her teetotaling, and my dad just never drank beer. I drank the beer. I don't know what it was. So in high school, when the kids were drinking, I didn't drink much. I mean, occasionally I'd have a sip of something, but that was back in the day. So everybody remember Bartles and James? The Bartles and James wine coolers? Yeah, that was a good thing. Wine coolers were a big deal then. Now you have seltzers or seltzer. Yeah, that wine coolers were a big deal. They should bring back Bartles and James. And anybody remember this one? I remember early high school going to a party, and I don't know what was in the bottle. It's something called Zima. What was Zima? I don't know what Zima was. It was some kind of a drink in a bottle, and it wasn't beer. What was Zima? Anybody remember Zima? My first liquor experience was in California. California coolers while in junior high. See, the California, those are the wine coolers, right? Bartles and James was the most famous. Seagram's had one. There was a Seagram's one. That was my first drinking experience. I was not a partier in high school. A matter of fact, my first real beer came, and I saw Scott posted this up. My first real beer came whenever my first real beer came when I was in the music business, and I was starting to manage a band, and I was out on the road with them, taking them around to some festivals. I was in my mid-20s, kind of entrepreneur in the music world, and I was managing a band, and we stopped after a concert near St. Louis or somewhere in Missouri, Springfield, Missouri, I think, and we went to an Irish pub. And they all ordered Guinness, and I ordered Guinness. And I said, I hate beer, but I'll do it. Because my beer experience was with my dad when I was in second grade. And I said, I don't want beer. And suddenly I ordered a Guinness, and I said, this is delightful. Oh, that Guinness, if you want to get me once or twice a year, I'll have a cold beer, usually at a baseball game, if I make it to a professional baseball game. And occasionally, it's just, there's something about being in an Irish pub and having a Guinness. There was something wonderful about that. That is a glorious and wonderful thing there. All right, Zima. Somebody just posted up the definition of Zima. Anybody remember Zimas? Zima is a clear, lightly carbonated alcoholic beverages made by the Coors Brewing Company. But what was it? Alcohol, I know, but what? So it's like a beer? Is it in a beer family? Is it in a wine cooler family? I don't know what the alcohol is in there. My dad used to run the canning and keg house at Hams I got to blow my screen up a little bit higher. I need a bigger monitor. I get cases for $1.16 kegs for $10 during high school keggers. Jim, you were the most popular guy in high school. Most popular dude in high school. Anyway, I was in my 20s before I had an official, drank a beer for the first time. 20s. And it was a Guinness. And because of that, I just can't. Yeah, I like Guinness still to this day. All right, it's National Beer Day. Tonight's a basketball game. Maybe we'll watch the basketball game. Anybody watch that comeback? I was at a cigar shop. It wasn't a cigar bar, cigar shop, having an evening cigar, doing a little bit of work on Saturday night. I watched the Florida game, the Florida wins, and then I watched the Duke game in Houston. And the entire game, Duke was ahead. So I said, I got to get back to my hotel. And I've traveled back to the rental car, went back to my hotel. And I got there and I walked into the lobby. There's a lobby bar, and I watched the game, and I had a little beverage, not a beer, but I watched the game. And Houston had come from behind. And I'm in Texas, and all the people in Texas cheering for Houston, and I wanted Houston to win rather than Duke. And so, if you watch that game, it was a fascinating game tonight. Florida versus Houston, and I love Florida. God bless 2 free states. That's so great. You can't lose because these are not some communist states. These are Florida. Governor Ron DeSantis, and then Governor Hot Wheels, Governor Abbott down in Texas. And so go both teams, but I have to err on the side of Houston because I always cheer for the team from Texas because God bless Texas. There ain't nothing like it. But if Florida wins, God bless Ron DeSantis and Florida. We love you as well. All right, Scott's coming back with the answer from the YouTube feed. Zima was marketed as an alternative to beer, an example of what is now referred to as a cooler with 4.7 to 5.4 alcohol by volume. Its production in the United States ceased in 2008. Rich says, my mom said beer tasted like horse piss. I finally got old enough and smart enough, mouth enough as a teenager to ask her when the last time she tasted horse piss. That was not a good outcome. Rich, sometimes as teenagers, we do things and say things that are not good outcomes. I don't know if it's kind of good now. I don't, maybe horse piss grows on you. I don't know. Anyway, all right, ladies and gentlemen, it's been a pleasure. Go Houston tonight. Glad to have all of you here. Don't forget, if you want to follow the show, pass it around. Take your Rumble link, take your Facebook link, and say, hey, here's how I pass the morning along. And don't forget the Patreon page. A big-time interview is about to drop there as well. Now, real quick, before we depart, I want to remind you today about Sherry. HomesWithSherry.com is the website. Glorious weather here in Colorado this week, and anybody on that I-25 corridor, if you've been thinking of buying or selling, Sherry Cree is your person. She's your lady. She's the one. Have a consultation, have a conversation. Talk about the market, talk about the interest rates, talk about what's the best month, what's the best week, what do you need to do at your house. Have a whole conversation, a holistic picture, and then it's not just about your house now and about the market today or the market next month or interest rates. It becomes then more about what are you trying to accomplish here? Are you going to be in the next house for 5 years, 10 years? Or are you trying to, what do you want to do? Because she wants to become your realtor for life. She wants to become your real estate strategist for life. And in doing so, you have a bigger picture plan. It's not just about adding an extra bedroom, subtracting a bedroom. Have that plan. Let Sherry walk you through it. HomesWithSherry.com, HomesWithSherry.com. Now's the time to get into that real estate market. And if she believes that if you have a big time plan, you can build up generational wealth with your real estate transactions. That's how Sherry Cree operates. That you're going to make a transaction, but make a purchase, make a sell, so that you can have generational wealth, because real estate is that powerful. I saw she posted up on her social media site this weekend that she can be the most loved and hated person in one neighborhood, because the person that loved her was the person that got their home sold quickly as they were downsizing after retirement. The people that hated her were everybody in the neighborhood as they were having a farewell party to tell that family, we love you, thanks for living in the neighborhood, but they're moving out of state for retirement. And she posted up something that she was the most loved and hated person at that party. The family that she helped do the real estate transaction loved her, and the neighbors were like, why did you have to sell their home so quickly? We thought we'd get another month or so out of them. And she's like, no, we sold it. They got the transaction done. So that's the perspective from different people. Sherry will help you get in or out of a neighborhood when you're ready to get in or out. And your neighbors, if they love you, are going to be angry with Sherry. If they hate you, they're going to be thanking Sherry as well that you're leaving. But you get the idea. HomesWithSherry.com, HomesWithSherry.com. great real estate friend of mine. And again, if you're in Wellington, Windsor, Fort Collins, Loveland, Greeley, if you're in Broomfield, if you're in Boulder, if you're in Aurora, you're in Denver, that entire I-25 corridor in the metro area, Sherry Cree has you all set to go. homeswithsherry.com, homeswithsherry.com, homeswithsherry.com. All right, we'll come back and check in on the Sea Hag again tomorrow. I was going to check in on the Sea Hag in the second half of the show, but if you watched the first half, you know what I'm talking about. If you just joined us late, tune in tomorrow, and we'll give you more comments and conversation for the life and times of the Sea Hag conservation. We want to protect the Sea Hag, but fortunately, the Sea Hag may be cornered for the first time in a powerful nature. Go watch the first of the show. You'll understand what I'm talking about. Hey, I mean this from the bottom of my heart. I'll be back here. I'm in Colorado today and tomorrow, and then later in the week, I'll be in St. Louis doing the shows. Hello, St. Louis, Missouri. Coming your way later this week. Until we meet tomorrow, God bless you. God bless America. Spread the word. I am Jimmy Lakey. Peace. I'm out of here.